Hey friends, this week I wanted to look at pulsars again, but in a pretty different way to the way I looked at it last time. And so I've got here a pretty extensive array of oscillators, as you can see on the screen. And the other day on my Instagram, I posted a short reel talking about detuning oscillators, just using 4 oscillators into a mixer and just detuning them to create chords. And so I kind of wanted to expand on that, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun if I made multiple different chords out of these 4 oscillators and stacked them and then put them into pulsars where I can crossfade between them. So that's what I've done. I've built all these different chord shapes. I actually don't know what they are. I just did them by ear. I think they sound pretty interesting though, but I think the fact that I did them by ear means that they're kind of a bit wonky, and I kind of like that about it. So let's just unmute this first channel. We've just got a straight chord. And up here I've got a CV mix, and it's set to have input from this knobs device from Volt. So when I turn the knob, it's gonna down here shift between which input we are on. So let's do that. And if I shift back the other way, the same thing will happen. And again. And you can see the lights change, denoting which input it's on. So I think that's pretty great, but I've also, if I get rid of the knobs input on the CV mix and I push up this second channel, we've got an LFO here, which is going to control it now. And the speed of the LFO is being controlled by another LFO over here, which is why we get that difference in speed. And just on the pulsars, I've got it set to supernova, which means that it randomly selects one. So if I turn supernova off, it'll just go round the circle. But I think it's more interesting to randomly select. And I just like how kind of weird it is. I also, over here, I've got each channel going into a mix 8, and the panning is all different. And I'm modulating the panning using this module Langor from Wicked with a Q. And so if you do not have an input on the bottom pulsar, it just makes these outputs an output for each of these inputs up the top, rather than just using this single output on the top pulsar. So I think that's pretty cool. Let's just mute that for a second. I've also created a little sequence up here using 2 new modules. I'm using this 4 sequencer, or what's it called? Simple Sequencer 4 from Sickerzel, and the Pizza Oscillator. A few weeks back I did a video focusing on another Bastel module called Crust, and this is a new oscillator from them called Pizza. And it has a lot of the same, I suppose, functionality as Crust, except for Crust is a drum module and this is just an oscillator. So let's listen to that. And on the quantizer, I've set it to chromatic. And that's because these chords aren't really to a scale, so I just kind of had to find notes that I felt worked with the chords. So let's hear them together. And the timing of the sequencer is coming from that first LFO that is controlling the rate at which the pulsar is shifting between inputs. So there is a synergy between the timing of the 2 of them. Now, it's all a bit discordant, but that's sort of by design. Let's have a look at this oscillator really quick. I've got some modulation happening in 2 inputs, but let's just push it a bit further. I think this oscillator sounds really excellent. I'm excited to use it more. I just wanted to chuck it in this video because it's new. And I wanted to check it out because I really liked the crust module as well, but I'll probably do a whole video on this oscillator because it's a fun oscillator. But I think that it works in this patch. Let's check out our final voice down here. And so, just bring this filter up a bit so we can hear it. So I've used another Bastel Pizza oscillator. But what I'm doing here is a bit different. So let's mute it really quick so I can explain. So in this case, I've taken the initial oscillator, the first oscillator of each of these oscillator stacks, so each of these 4 oscillators. I've taken the first one, which is kind of, I guess, the root note, although that's not really always the case, but I've taken the sort of root note, so to speak, of each of these stacks, and I've taken it and I've put it into this Pulsars, and I'm modulating the pulsar rate of crossfade with the same LFO, and it's also set to supernova. So the idea is that we kind of get a bass note from these chords. But what I'm doing then is, instead of using the initial oscillator as the sound source, I'm sending it into this hot tuner module to detect what tuning each of the voices is set to. And then I'm taking that CV signal out of hot tuner, putting it through a slew, and then into Bastel Pizza. So you end up with a pretty warped version of the root note. Let's unmute it again. So like the tracking isn't perfect, although it's pretty good, honestly. I did have a look at this module when I was doing that video a number of months ago talking about guitar in VCV. But I think it works better. It works better when you're using the input as oscillators rather than a guitar input, because it's easier for it to track, I think. So let's just unmute all of these. So, pretty wild stuff. I realized that it's not very melodic, especially compared to a lot of other videos I've done, but I thought it was a fun experiment. And it just sort of shows you how, if you approach a problem from a different viewpoint, you get very different results. So, in this case, I feel like creating chords out of oscillators rather than using quantizers and polyphonic modules and stuff creates unexpected results, and I like that. And also, Pulsars is just such a great module. Like, it's so versatile, so powerful, and really without this I wouldn't have had the idea to create this kind of patch. I just really like how it moves through the chords. Let's change the speed of the LFO maybe. also modulating the filter on each of these oscillator stacks. Let's also turn the octave up on this oscillator up the top. I think that's going to do it for this week. Let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, this patch will be available to play around with on patch storage. The link will be in the comments. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye.